I was 16 years old. My friend was at my house. I had just taken a shower and was in my room getting dressed. My friend was sitting on my bed, taking a selfie for Snapchat. At that time, it was a normal and harmless thing we did every day. She did not know that the mirror behind her showed more than just her. In the mirror, you could see me. I was standing there, topless, in the middle of changing clothes, with no idea that I had ended up in the picture. For me, it was a small moment that passed quickly. For someone else, it became something that was saved and shared. The person who got the picture saved it. The person zoomed in on the mirror where I was seen and then sent the picture to others. For them, it was maybe fast and careless. For me, it had big effects. The picture kept spreading from person to person. In the end, it was shared in a Snapchat group where many of the members were boys I knew. They were people I had talked to, laughed with, and thought were my friends. 2 weeks after the picture started to spread, I found out about it. I clearly remember how strong the feeling was in that moment. It felt like time stopped. Everything around me felt far away and hard to understand. My body reacted strongly. I felt so much pain. In my mind, the same question came again and again. Why did this happen to me? I had not done anything that I thought was different from other people my age. I had not tried to get attention. I was a shy but happy teenager who was trying to grow up and find my place in life. Something so private being shared like that was very hard to understand, and even harder to accept. The first shock turned into deep shame. It was a heavy shame that changed how I saw myself. I started to look at myself in a negative and doubtful way. I felt very exposed and weak. It felt like I had lost control over my body and my privacy. I started thinking about every detail and tried to understand what had happened. I thought about what I could have done differently, and if it was somehow my fault. I questioned my behavior, my looks, and my choices. Even though I tried to find a reason, there was no reason that made it okay. Still, I felt the guilt inside me. What hurt me the most was a feeling of betrayal. People I had trusted spread the picture or looked at it without reacting. This made me feel confused and hurt inside. It was painful and made me lose some of my feeling of safety and trust in others. During this time in my life, I wrote in a diary. It helped me to understand my thoughts and my feelings and describe my daily life. The diary became a place where I could be honest with myself and try to create order when everything felt messy. But there was one thing I never wrote about. The picture and what had happened was so hard to describe and so hard to admit, even to myself, that I never wrote about it. The silence in my diary showed how hard it was for me to understand and accept what had happened. I kept my feelings inside. On the outside, I tried to act like everything was normal. I smiled when I needed to and tried to live my normal life. But inside, I was always fighting between shame, sadness, anger, and confusion. It was hard to explain my feelings, and I did not know who I could talk to. I was so afraid that I would never be able to be happy again or feel safety. This just destroyed me.
Welcome to Future Chronicles, a European podcast created within a 2-year Erasmus Plus project where young women and allies expose gender disinformation, unpack how it spreads, and share how we can resist it. From the margins to the center, reclaiming our narratives, rebuilding trust, and strengthening democracy.
This episode is produced by Traces&Dreams. the Swedish partner of the Future Chronicles project, in collaboration with participants Tilda, Lovisa, and Elina. Traces&Dreams is a Swedish impact agency working for a wiser tomorrow through narrative strategy, futures literacy, and public education. Find out more on our webpage.
Thank you, Tilda, for sharing your story. It was interesting to listen to, but at the same time, very painful.
Thank you for listening. I'm very glad that I'm finally able to share this story with others.
It was a very powerful story that brought many emotions to mind.
I definitely agree.
Good that it can make you feel these emotions, because that's what I want to bring forward with it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that you do share it, because obviously you're not alone in this, and millions of other people, and especially girls, have been through like similar situations. That's what I think is so important. It's so important to share it, because I think many people are scared and feel shame, just like you did when you were younger and went through this.
Yes, and that's exactly what I want to bring forward with it, to help people feel a connection to it and see that it's not normal that you would think it is.
And I also think that the importance of you sharing, like you said, to make people who've been through the same feel that they're not alone, and this happens to many people, and you do feel ashamed, but you shouldn't feel ashamed, because it's not something you did, or it's something that was done to you.
Exactly, and I feel like many girls go through this feeling because it's something that comes with the situation, and it's something that should be worked through very early when things like this happen.
Why I think it's so important to bring awareness to it, so that to make it easier for people who have been through the same thing to share it at an earlier stage. Like you said, you were afraid to talk about it, you felt ashamed. And by bringing awareness to it, maybe we can tell younger girls who are going through the same thing that they shouldn't feel ashamed to it, and speak up about it earlier to get help and help others.
This is something that is very hard for me to talk about even to this day, because it was such a long time ago that this did happen to me, and I haven't talked about it or like put attention to it even till this day. This is the first time I'm talking about this, and that makes it like, as a woman, I think it's many women that go through this, and I think it's something that needs to be heard, that this is something that can put women through many years, and they can even not talk about it.
Once again, I just think it shows the importance of to actually talk about it, so that other girls can hopefully speak up sooner and
Exactly.
not keep everything within themselves.
And when I heard your story, Tilda, I started to think about my own experiences, and there was one situation that immediately came to my mind. One morning, I received a message from a person in the same village, and in the message he wrote sexual things about me, and what made it even harder was that it didn't came out of nowhere, because there was already history and the feeling that my boundaries had been crossed, and the feeling of unsafety around that person, who's also several years older than me. But what affected me the most wasn't just the content of the message, it was the context. We live in a small village, everyone knows everyone. You see each other at the grocery store, on the streets, at social events. And the thought that they, whether it was him or his friends, were sitting at a party writing that message to me, that they could laugh about it, encourage each other, or even talk about it afterward, that made me feel incredibly sad and humiliated. And it's same as you said, Tilda, it changed how I felt in my own village. Suddenly I didn't feel safe in a place where I'd always moved around freely. Because in a small community, you can't just block someone and move on. You know you will run into them again. Because the online world doesn't stay online here, it follows you out into real life. So for me, this became a very clear example of how boundaries get blurred between online and offline, private, public, and between safety and fear.
I feel with you very much when you now said that you can't run away from people in a small community. I felt exactly the same, and it made me lose my safety directly. And that's just horrible, and it's nothing that should happen for any girl.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think you made a really important point there, Elina. Like, when we live in a small community that we do, in like a small village, it's not just the online things. It's very easy for someone to write something online and think that it will disappear, or it's easy to just post it or send a message, but they don't realize that it actually follows you along in the real life. You meet people and everyone hears about everything and rumors are spreading, and I think that it can be maybe harder in a small village than, for example, in a really big city, because then you can just, as you said, you can go outside and you don't know anyone, whereas here where we live, you go to the grocery store and half of the people have heard something, or have heard the rumor, or have seen the picture, for example, in your case, Tilda. And that's also, I think, why it's so important that we lift this and talk about it and spread awareness how it could be in small villages like we do live in.
I think it's very important that, as you said, Lovisa, we talk about it so people understand the impact it has and the feeling of unsafety you get, and you kind of get almost paranoid, and is this person talking about me? Why are they staring at me? And you, as Tilda said, you don't know which people you can trust anymore.
Exactly. And also, I think why I just tried to live on with my life very fast after this happened to me, I think it's a big part because of all these people who did this to me also live in the same community as me, and I'm going to run into them in the grocery store and other places too. And I think that it would make it so much harder at the time to think that, and like not to try live on with my life and just stay in the situation if I'm going to see their faces over and over again.
And once again, it's so important to talk about it, because obviously you two are not alone in these kind of situations. And we have actually been collecting some stories from different girls living in a small community, and we are going to share their stories. I saw a girl online who was called a slut because she was wearing a shirt that showed a lot of her chest. There were also many comments about her butt and breasts. That was the first story that we have gotten in from a young girl living in a small village. What do you think about this story? Is it something that you can recognize yourself in or seen before?
I think it's something that's very common nowadays, unfortunately. And the media, social media is so fast. You always see a new post and there's comments flowing, and I feel like there's no control of the comments. You can report them, but nothing happens. I feel like it's sad.
Yeah, definitely. And as we talked about before, nowadays it's so easy to just write something and post a comment or write something in private, rather than before, like before social media, it's much harder to say something to someone in person. Also, it's maybe harder to write something in text, because then you can often identify who it is. But many times on social media, you might not even know who wrote this, or it could be a fake account or someone you don't even know. So yeah, I think it's very common, these kind of things.
And I also think it's very common that gender stereotypes and sexism is shaped in comments so much these days on social media.
I just feel like this story, it makes me angry, and it also, I think it highlights how hurtful and degrading online comments can be.
And I also feel like there needs to be better education about respect and consent, stronger support from adults and schools, and even like government, I feel like, because you can also see comments on government posts that are very strongly worded.
Yeah, and I think as a parent, if you have young kids on social media, I think that the parents should also have responsibility to make sure and to see what are their kids writing on social media, who are they interacting with, what are they commenting on different posts. Because if they're under 18, someone should still be responsible and should be the parents. And I also think that, I think it's in Australia, or I'm not sure, but maybe Australia, it's going to be illegal to have social media under the age of 13. I'm not sure about the country, but I think it's Australia. And I think that's very important and correct, and should be worldwide, or at least more control of what you post and what you do on social media overall.
I have received comments online saying that I eat too much, that I would be prettier if I were thinner, and that no one would want to be in a relationship with me. It has affected me so much that I no longer dare to sit on someone's lap without supporting myself with my leg. This is also one of the stories that we received, and I feel like this is something that I can relate to, always having that body image, comparing yourself with others, and then when you receive comments, that must be a horrible feeling to have.
And I think the saddest part here is that For the person writing the comment, it's probably something very quick. They write it and then they forget about it. But for the person receiving the comment, it could affect her for the rest of her life. As she said, it has affected her so much that she doesn't want to sit on someone's lap without supporting herself. And that just shows how much one single comment, how much impact it can make, and how much harm it can make to someone.
And I also think that this kind of comments online does not only make issues for the girls that gets the comments, it also makes issues for the girls who sees the comments. Because I can reflect on myself as a young girl. If I would see those kind of comments, I would put pressure on myself to think that I don't want to get those kind of comments. So that affected me. And I think that's a evil circle.
Yeah, I completely agree.
A boy I started seeing spread a rumor about me by telling his friends that I had sent him nudes photos. That was not true. So this story very much creates feelings of betrayal and injustice. And I can really relate to this story from the story I had told in the beginning.
Also, this shows how strong words can be. Even though she hasn't done it, it doesn't matter if that's what he's saying. And even words like that can hurt so much and spread even bigger rumors.
And I feel like the story reflects how girls are often slut-shamed or judged more harshly in situations involving sexuality or rumors about sexual behavior, which highlights the unequal gender norms we have in this society, where girls may face greater social conquests than boys.
And I also think even in this story, it's words again. So easy for someone to put out those words in the world and damage someone else's reputation so hard and damage someone's life so hard. It's a very hard reality to see for many girls, I think.
And once again, for the boy who spread the rumor, for him it's just words, and which probably something he said maybe very quickly, something that just came out of his mouth without really thinking about it. And for him, he probably forgot about it very quickly. But for the girl who this rumor was spread about, for her it could affect her for years and years. And because she might feel ashamed of what other people are thinking, even though she didn't do it, people are still thinking she did it. And she could be the girl who sends nude photos for years. And yeah, it's much more harmful for her than probably what he initially was thinking.
And I think, as you said before, Lovisa, about the parents' role in this, the responsibility they have to talk to their children about this may happen and this is what you can do about it. It's not, talk to the girls like it's not your fault, you shouldn't be ashamed, and never put shame on the girls. I think that's very important because I think many grown-ups do that. They put shame on the boys or girls who send nude pictures, and I feel like that changes how you can handle the situation. So if the girl that sent or didn't send this picture feel safe to tell their parents or grown-ups about what happened, I think you can deal with the situation better than if they feel like they can't talk to grown-ups or parents because they will be ashamed. So I think that's very important to not put shame on the girls.
I am a girl who enjoys doing many things that are considered masculine, and I feel that I receive a lot of criticism for that as a girl. One time, my father posted a picture of me helping him repair his car. An older acquaintance commented, "Your daughter is helping you. I wonder how that will end."
I think, again, this is a story that highlights the gender norms where certain interests or skills or jobs even are labeled as masculine, and the girl is almost criticized for crossing traditional gender boundaries and reinforcing stereotypes about what girls and boys are expected to do. And I think that's something that we need to work on, and something I can relate to as I used to work in a male-dominated area, and I feel like we've come a long way, but we're not quite there yet.
I think this is very common, and often a lot of pictures are often spread at social media and Facebook and so on that are criticizing and degrading women. Like, for example, I've seen a picture of, it was the tire and the rim of a car, which was destroyed. And the text was, "When you lend your car to your girlfriend," meaning that they are driving against pavements and so on, destroying the rims of the car. And that's just, and for many people, they think it's a fun thing to share, whereas it actually contributes to this, to the norms and to making it okay to make these jokes and for people to continue to degrade women.
Yeah, and I also think that this kind of comments really shows that we are not there yet, because this is something that is very usual to see on social media, and it kind of is like why do you need to write that? Like, why? It kind of shows like an open protest against gender representatives.
It feels like many boys want a girl to be sexually provocative and are only interested in her body. Many boys ask girls to send pictures of their bodies. Once, a picture of my friend was shared without her consent. This is our last story, and I think it sums up pretty good what we've been talking about and the Tilda story.
I think that this story also reflects like the harmful beliefs that girls are expected to be sexually provocative, or that their value is mainly connected to their bodies. And I also think that these ideas are misleading and reinforce unhealthy and unrealistic norms about relationships, attraction, and especially consent.
The story shows how girls are often sexualized and objectified, while boys may be social encourage and pursue or request sexual images, it highlights unequal gender expectations and power dynamics, especially when images are requested or shared without consent. So many of the stories are related to how girls and women often are judged or sexualized online. And why is it like this, do you guys think?
I think it's because society places a lot of focus on women's appearances and sexuality, and social media makes it easier to comment and judge without taking responsibility. And I also think that gender stereotypes and double standards also play a big role. So how can sexualized comments or slut shaming affect a girl's confidence, mental health, or sense of safety online?
I think they can make girls feel ashamed, insecure, and unsafe. And these are things that we have talked about throughout this podcast. And over time, this can lower self-esteem and lead to anxiety, stress, and avoiding social media. And especially you see the mental health in young people nowadays is very bad. And I think you can connect these kind of things to teenagers' well-being nowadays.
Exactly. And I also think that this doesn't only affect like the sense of safety online. It also puts the safety in real life in danger too for many girls.
So what needs to change to reduce this kind of harassment?
I think the main thing is that there needs to be better education about respect and consent, and stronger support from adults and schools, and also clearer rules and consequences on social media platforms. As we talked about earlier, it's so easy to just post something online, write a comment, and for the victim, it can play such a big role and affect them for the rest of their lives. Whereas for the person writing the comment, nothing happens with them in most cases. And that's something that needs to change. And so we also had some stories about body shaming online. So what do you think body shaming is so common online, especially towards girls and women, and where does it come from?
I think it's because appearances is highly valued in society, and social media encourages comparison and judgment.
Why is body shaming so common online, especially towards girls and women, and where does it come from? So why I think is because girls and women are so much judged more harshly because of gender norms and unrealistic beauty standards towards women. Why is it common for girls and young women to be targeted by sexual rumors, and what power dynamics are often behind this behavior?
I believe that girls and young women are often targeted by sexual rumors because of gender stereotypes and double standards about sexuality. And these rumors can sometimes be used to gain social power or control someone's reputation or lower their status in a social group. So, what support and legal or social protections exist for someone who has been exposed to false sexual rumors or image-based abuse? And what is more needed?
So in Sweden, spreading false sexual rumors can be illegal under defamation laws, and sharing sexual images without consent is a crime. People can report this to the police and get support from the police, schools, social services, and also from organizations like Tjejzonen or Kvinnofridslinjen. But more awareness, clearer laws, and easier reporting systems are still needed. How do gender stereotypes influence the way people comment on girls' interests or behaviors?
So there I think it is gender stereotypes that create expectations about how girls should act or what they should like. When girls have interests or behaviors outside these expectations, people may judge, question, or criticize them more easily. What can be done to challenge these attitudes and create a society where girls are free to express themselves without judgment?
Well, it's a hard question, but maybe these attitudes can be challenged through education about gender equality and supportive adults and role models, and by encouraging respect and acceptance both online and offline. So, how can it affect someone if private or sexual images of them are shared without their consent?
That's a great question. It can cause shame, as we talked about, stress, and even fear. And it may affect a person's mental health, their relationships, and their sense of safety, both online and in real life, and especially in small communities and small villages, as we talked about.
Over time, I slowly began to understand that what had happened did not decide my value as a person. I started to see that the blame was on the people who shared the picture, not on me. This understanding did not come quickly. It took a long time and a lot of thinking. What happened has left a mark on me, but it has also made me more aware of how important privacy, respect, and responsibility are online. It showed me how easy it is for a person to get hurt when limits are crossed. It also showed me how important it is to show care and respect for other people's private lives. Today, I am 22 years old, and I still remember how fast my life changed because of one picture. I remember the feeling of having no power and a lot of pain. But I also carry the strength that grew from this experience. Being able to tell my story and share it with others has helped me take back control over my own story. It also makes one thing clear. The responsibility always lies with the person who chooses to break someone else's privacy. This experience has also changed how I see the online world and how we act in it. In a world where we are always connected and where things spread very fast, it is easy to forget that behind every picture, every video, and every message, there is a real person. That person has feelings, limits, and a life that can be deeply affected by things others may think are small or unimportant. I also think about all the people who have lived through similar things, but never dared or been able to talk about them. Shame and guilt often create silence and make people feel alone. By sharing my story, I hope to break the silence and help others feel understood. If you are listening and recognize yourself in any part of what I have said, I want you to know that you are not alone. What happened to you does not define who you are, and it does not lower your value as a person. There is help and support, and there are people who want to listen, even if it feels hard to take the first step to speak. And to you who are listening but have not been in this kind of situation, you still matter. Every time you choose respect, every time you do not share something, and every time you stand up for someone else, you help create a safer place, online and in real life. When I look back at what had happened, I no longer see pain and fear. I also see something that made me stronger. Lessons I have learned, and the courage to tell my story. Putting words to something that once felt impossible to talk about has helped me take back control over my own story. Thank you for listening to my story. By listening, thinking, and continue to talk about these issues, you help create change. A safer and more respectful society starts with how we treat each other, in our words, our actions, and the choices we make every day. As you heard throughout this episode, gender disinformation and online harassment are not abstract concepts. They are lived realities. They affect how young people move through the world and how safe they feel and how they see themselves.
And in small communities, the impact can be even stronger because the online world doesn't stay online. It follows you into school, into public spaces, and into everyday life.
But what these stories also show is that silence protects harmful narratives. When experiences are shared anonymously or openly, it challenged the idea that this is normal or something that young women just have to accept.
But change begins with awareness, and awareness begins with listening. And listening begins with stories like these.
You've been listening to the Future Chronicles podcast, an Erasmus Plus project with Synergy Italy, Traces&Dreams Sweden, Jova Spain, and Europejski Dialog Slovakia. Journalists for Human Rights, North Macedonia and IVC Romania working together for gender justice across Europe. Future's Chronicles challenges gender disinformation and supports young people in resisting it through education, storytelling, and civic engagement. Future Chronicles is co-founded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. The views and opinions expressed are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union or the European Education and Culture Executive Agency. Neither the European Union or EACEA can be held responsible for them. If this episode resonated with you, share it. If you'd like to connect or learn more about the project, please visit future-chronicles.eu or search for us on social media. Thanks for listening.